Commission meeting is called to order. We begin to acknowledge that the land on which we gather and that is currently known as the City of West Hollywood is the occupied, unceded, seized territory of the Gabrielino Tongva and Gabrielino Kish peoples. Commissioner Post will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand if you're able.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And I'd like to welcome Councilmember Lauren Meister to swear in a newly appointed Public Safety Commissioner, Kimberly Winnick. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Okay. Here we go. Will you raise your right hand, please? I, Kimberly Winnick,
I, Kimberly Winnick,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that while serving in the office
that while serving in the office
as a member of the Public Safety Commission
as a member of the Public Safety Commission
of the City of West Hollywood,
of the City of West Hollywood,
that I will support and defend the Constitution
that I will support and defend the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I am about to enter.
Congratulations, Commissioner Winnick. We have to sign. There you go. I don't know if there's two of them. Oh. Did they spell your name?
I didn't put the middle initial.
Ah.
That was my 20th birthday present.
Okay, there you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
very much.
Thanks for serving. Thank you, everyone.
Commissioner Eng. Red. Commission Secretary, can I get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Eng,
Here.
Commissioner Hallman,
Here.
Commissioner Pilarski,
Here.
Commissioner Post,
Here.
Commissioner Winnick, Vice Chair Blau,
Here.
Chair Harrison.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Item 5 of the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to tonight's agenda? I see no changes. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
I will second.
Right.
Commission Secretary, can I get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Eng,
Aye.
Commissioner Hallman,
Aye.
Commissioner Pilarski,
Aye.
Commissioner Post,
Aye.
Commissioner Winnick, Vice Chair Blau,
Aye.
Chair Harrison.
Aye.
The agenda is approved.
Thank you. Next is the approval of the minutes. Are there any changes to the minutes for January 26, 2028? Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second? Sure. Okay, thank you. Minutes are approved. Public comments is next up. Commission Secretary. Oh, sorry. May I get a roll
Yeah,
call,
we'll do a
please?
quick
We'll do a roll call.
Commissioner Eng,
Yes.
Commissioner Hallman,
Aye.
Commissioner Pilarski,
Aye.
Commissioner Post,
Aye.
Commissioner Winnick,
Abstain.
Vice Chair Blau,
Aye.
Chair Harrison.
Aye.
The minutes are approved.
Thank you. Now moving on to public comments. Commission Secretary, do we have any speakers at this time or any callers on Zoom?
We have no Zoom callers, but we do have comments in chambers. So the first person we have is Ed Holman. If you want to approach the podium, you'll have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Ed Holman, Neighborhood Watch Block Co-Captain for Gelson Heights. I stood before the City Council last Monday, Commissioner Pilarski was there, to sound the alarm on a systemic security breach of our city's garages. Private garage access codes are being found written on building exteriors. If you aren't familiar with this issue, I ask you to go to WeHo online and look in the Dear WeHo section. All the information is there. Since that meeting, more codes have been discovered. I have personally seen a few more codes just a couple of blocks away, and neighbors who are now know where to look are reporting similar findings on other buildings throughout the city. Word of mouth is slowly getting this issue needed attention, but it's not enough. As I stated, it's only been a week since its discovery became public, and I'm here tonight to ask for a specific timeline on the following. When will the city issue a formal safety bulletin to all West Hollywood property managers, owners, and HOAs? Most buildings still have no idea their security is compromised. What will the city's involvement be beyond making an announcement? What is the timeline for Athens, who committed to help remove the codes, to confirm that every route in the city has been cleared of these gate clicker codes? We're talking about physical safety of our residents. I ask the Commission to set a firm deadline for these actions sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. And our final speaker is Helen Krieger. If you want to approach the podium, you'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you so much, and welcome to Commissioner Winnick. I am the Transportation and Mobility Commission liaison for the public safety, and so I'm just here with a report on our meeting last week. The main things that pertain to public safety are there were several updates for WeHo Vision Zero. We got to see a draft of the WeHo Vision Zero dashboard that will be publicly available to everyone soon, so that was really exciting to see. It's going to have information from 2014 through 2025, but because the information comes from TIMS, the 2025 data is not going to be as comprehensive because it usually takes about a year for everything to get worked out. I asked if they could use sheriff's reports to update the data sooner so that it would be updated every month, but they said that mixing the data like that isn't really recommended, and then also for what they're using this for, which is like grant applications and looking at the status of different like traffic and how collisions have gone up or down over the years, you usually want to look at about 5 years of data. So we gave them some feedback on that. It's going to have a lot of interactive filters like crash severity, date, time of day, mode of transit, whether it was a bike, a pedestrian, or only cars. Unfortunately, the data that it comes from doesn't include e-scooters, so e-scooters are not currently in there, which is kind of unfortunate. We gave them some feedback about clarity, colors, and also they're going to add like a layer of safety improvements that have been added, because when you just look at the data, it's a little overwhelming in terms of how many accidents and fatalities and severe injuries there are. So we said it would be good to show like what have we done to try to bring some of those down. And then we also got an update on AB 382, which allows, well, it will automatically change the speed limits from 20 miles per hour to 20 miles per hour within 500 feet of a school, and 25 miles per hour within 1,000 feet of a school, and that would start on January 1st of 2031. But local municipalities can opt in to change it sooner if they want. And so they basically asked, what is our appetite for changing it sooner? And we said, hi. And so they're gonna look at that and do essentially a report of what streets could be affected that have schools nearby. And then the final thing is we looked at lowering the speed limits on Harriet Street between Hammond and San Vicente, and on Almond Street south of Melrose. And this is because City Council had directed city staff to do traffic studies to see about lowering those speeds as part of the Vision Zero program. And city staff recommended lowering it from 25 miles per hour to 20 on Harriet, and we agreed. And then they said that the traffic study didn't get enough cars to be able to lower it on Almont, so we asked them to just look at that again to make sure that the California Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, to make sure that it really doesn't allow that, because there were some collisions with injuries on that street. So we wanted them to potentially lower that from 25 to 20 as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. And that is all for the public speakers.
Okay, thank you. I see that we have no unfinished business. Next item is 9A. The Public Safety Commission will receive a brief overview of the Public Safety Commission's purview by the city clerk. Hello, Melissa.
Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and Commissioners. My name is Melissa Crowder. I am the City Clerk for the City of West Hollywood, and I was asked to come this evening and give a presentation on your purview. I do this periodically when questions start arising as to what is and what isn't within your purview, and just to provide some clarity, not only for you, but for members of the public. So let's get started, and as we're going through, if you would like to ask questions, at the will of the chair, if you want to ask them as we go along, I'm okay with that, or if you want me to get through my presentation before questions, I'm okay with that as well. So I'll defer to you as presiding officer.
Okay, I think we'll hold questions until the end.
So how is the commission's purview decided? Well, it's in our municipal code. And so anytime changes are made to the purview of the commission, it's done by ordinance in a public meeting. So we'd introduce it on first reading and then have a second reading, and then it goes into effect 30 days later. And so tonight, what I'm going to talk about is what your responsibilities are as the Public Safety Commission, what falls outside of your purview. Think about ways that we can work together as staff, city clerk, along with the city council about your purview and questions around that. And then talk about ways that we can ensure you effectively perform your role as public safety commissioners. So in section 2.60 of the municipal code, it outlines the Public Safety Commission's purview, and that you serve in an advisory capacity. And what that means is we have judicial, which is our city council, and then we have quasi-judicial, which is planning commission, business license commission, because they can pass resolutions and they can affect changes. Rent stabilization commission is a quasi-judicial commission. They conduct public hearings. And your duties and limitations are defined in that section of the code. So, for the members of the Public Safety Commission shall evaluate and make recommendations related to public safety and neighborhood livability, analyze the level of emergency services preparedness and management, and assist city staff and the council in promoting and maintaining communications with citizens relative to public safety. And so as you can see at the bottom, I listed the most recent ordinances that changed this. And the biggest change was 21-1148. And then we made a small change in 2023. So those first two numbers are the year, so 2021 and 2023. The first one in 2021 made significant changes around the type of public safety or community safety that we have in West Hollywood. A lot of that came out of what occurred in the summer of 2020 and George Floyd. And then in 2023, there were some minor changes, mainly around attendance, term limits, and there may have been some clarification in this definition as well. Because sometimes we find either it's confusing for the public, it's confusing for the commission, or it's confusing for staff, and so we have to kind of update language just to provide clarity to everyone. So the core purview of the commission is to analyze citywide law enforcement needs, recommend policy improvements to the city council. So through this commission, you would pass a motion, and that motion would then be shared with me, and it would go up to the council for consideration. Community-based public safety approaches was part of what came out of that 2021 change. And if you recall, that was when we increased our security ambassador contract and made some minor changes in our contract with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. Since then, we've made further adjustments to both of those programs and are even bringing in community resource officers or community safety officers. Two of those will be coming online, and that was shared at the last council meeting as part of the 6-month update. Fire and emergency preparedness. So evaluate fire and emergency services preparedness and recommend policies around that and coordinate with LA County Fire Department. Community-oriented policing, so best practices around fair and safe law enforcement in the city and community policing, so partnering with law enforcement on policy recommendations. Part of that was, if you recall, some training that was suggested that be included in those officers, deputies that are assigned to West Hollywood Sheriff's Station. That was one of the changes that came out of this, based on recommendations from this commission to the council, and promote well-being of residents and businesses. Communication and complaint trends. So this is why every month at your meeting, you receive updates from the Sheriff's Department, the Fire Department, and our security ambassadors so that you can see where trends are starting to occur and make recommendations on adjustments to the City Council. And again, this is talked about on another slide, but it's based on trends and not individual cases that you become aware of. Contract monitoring and service levels. So as you know, we have a contract with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. We are one of many contracted cities, and so we can make suggestions, and those go to the council, and the council makes that to contract cities, and then there are city managers who are part of a committee that go through the contract, and potentially amendments can be made. But as a contract city, we are limited in some ways as to what we can direct and can't direct. And so one of the things that we did do as a city was we included the discrimination clause into the contract. That was many years ago, but it was something significant that we as a city did. So we do have the ability to do that, but that is in conjunction with other contracted cities. And so it's simply a recommendation of what we would like to see. As you know, the council has worked with the Sheriff's Department again around training and things that they would like to see at our West Hollywood Sheriff's Department. As Captain Lapkin shared, we are the only one that has a MET team assigned to us, so there are definitely things that we have that other cities don't have. And so that is a big core function of this commission, is the assistance of reviewing and making recommendations around that contract. And then recommend improvements to citizen input processes. And so this is one of the forums by which members of the public can come and share their concerns around public safety, fire department, and our security ambassadors. Neighborhood livability. So evaluate issues affecting neighborhood livability and make recommendations to the council and focus on policy level solutions. So again, looking at those trends, looking at things that will make broader changes rather than responding to a specific incident. Now, some specific incidents can be so large that they have to be addressed a little differently, but it's focusing on policy level recommendations and solutions that can be made to the council. So explicit restrictions. So this is the biggest one, is that this is not a civilian oversight commission. We do not have one. Los Angeles County Sheriff, the county has its own civilian oversight commission and oversee personnel matters related to their deputies and their employees. And so we cannot investigate, we cannot adjudicate, we cannot direct operations of the Sheriff's Department. Captain Lapkin deploys her deputies as she sees fit in conjunction with the Director of Public Safety and the City Council. So as you saw during last Monday's council meeting, there were various recommendations made to the Sheriff's Department around different things and questions, and that is where some of those conversations occur, but their oversight committee gets involved in personnel matters. We do not, and that is specifically in section 2.60.090 called out that the commission can't do that. And I think it was simply to bring light to the fact that, you know, you don't have that authority, and to make it clear to the commission, to staff, and to the public that That is not a duty that the commission has. You don't supervise the sheriff's department or fire personnel, talk about the deployment of resources or tactical decisions. I've been in local government for 26 years and worked for a city that had its own police department. And even in a city that has its own police department, the city manager doesn't get involved with tactical decisions because that's not our specialty. It would be like Lieutenant Lapkin coming and telling me how to do city clerk stuff. So it's all about us trying to stay in our appropriate lanes and just talking about what the values are of this city, what the council policy direction is to them, and working collaboratively with contract cities around that. Or the execution of services that remains with the city council and city staff and our contracted providers. So within the analyzing of citywide trends and calls for service, let's say, it is outside the purview of the commission to investigate a specific complaint against an officer or to even ask about personnel matters. I will just speak from even a city level, things that happen related to city employees are personnel matters and they are confidential. Within is recommending emergency preparedness policies. That is within your purview. And I think those conversations happened after the fires in January of 2025. Outside is to direct emergency response operations, so how fire and sheriffs respond to emergencies. So your role is advisory and policy focused. What policy recommendations can you make to the city council to affect the betterment of the people who live, work, and play in the city of West Hollywood? And it's defined and limited by the municipal code. And this is to ensure that the commission understands its role and how it reports to council and what staff's role is in that and what our contracted provider's role is. And that is my presentation for you this evening. I am here for any questions that you may have.
Thank you, commissioners. Any questions at this time?
I have a,
Commission.
You'll get it. It's easy.
Commissioner Winnick.
I would like to know if we may have printouts of the slides that you just presented.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah. I will give them I will share them with Jessica, your commission secretary, and she will distribute them to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Vice Chair Blau.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Madam City Clerk, for the presentation. It's very helpful. One of the things that I'm really gathering from this, and I think is underlining, is the purview is really focused on citywide policy recommendations, which I think is really helpful because, as we've talked about before, one can put a public safety perspective or spin on any number of issues, so I think that's really helpful. One thing that's not clear, though, to me, what is the definition of neighborhood livability? Because that's vague.
Yes. As I was putting this together, I was like, ooh, that's going to be a fun one to talk about because
zoning sounds like it could be neighborhood livability.
That could be a lot of things. But I think what I think about the commission's purview around that is if you are seeing instances where your neighbors don't feel safe walking their dogs at night, that there have been robberies or they've been assaulted, then I think that was when you would work with the sheriff's department and Danny and talk about how potentially we could make changes around that. Or you're seeing trends, that goes to the trends thing again. That is a tough one because it kind of falls into a little bit of everything that you're not currently given authority to oversee. And so I will put that on my list of things to discuss with the council, is to whether we need to remove neighborhood livability or better define what that means as far as this commission, because I think it is vague.
Great. Thank you very much. I'll
You're
hold
welcome.
my next question in case anyone
Thank you,
else has
Commissioner Eng.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Madam City Clerk. I have two questions. And the first one I'm not sure you can answer, but you mentioned that we don't have an oversight committee in the city, but the county does. I presume that's covering our department also, or not?
I'm sorry?
The citizen oversight with the county, does it also cover our department?
Yes, because it's Los Angeles County Sheriff.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then something else you mentioned was making a motion to make recommendations to City Council. Say, for instance, with the flock system, if the will or the majority of the commission wanted to recommend pausing or proceeding, whichever, when would we make that motion? At the end or during the police reports, or when best would it be to make that motion?
Well, I would say that that's already at the city council level, and the city council has already given direction to staff around flock, and staff will be coming back, I believe, at the second meeting in March to provide those findings. So at this point, it wouldn't have teeth, if that makes sense. It would only be doing it to do it. And my recommendation is once something is at the council level and they're making decisions and directing staff to take action, that's where it needs to stay, because it's already elevated to the council.
Commissioner Pilarski.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the presentation. Also had similar questions about neighborhood livability, and I think a lot of people do because things feel safer or less safe depending on where you are and what time of day and all of those things. So I appreciate you taking that back and looking at that a little more closely. Something that is kind of, it's a topic in the city right now is the vehicular violence. And it's an interesting position that we're put in because we review the data and we talk about that data every month. But we're not allowed to address it. We're not allowed to talk about intersections or, we can direct them to the Transportation Mobility Commission, but we don't get to speak directly to the numbers that were presented every month. So that is a question, I guess, to you. If you could maybe give some recommendations to our commission as to how to better address that.
So a couple things. The way that we try to solve that is through having the liaisons. And so having the Public Safety Commission liaison report to the Transportation and Mobility Commission, similarly to what you received tonight from the Transportation and Mobility Commission. Because there is a commission that oversees transportation, that's the correct place for those conversations to occur. If you recall, Councilmember Byers mentioned a potential study session between the two commissions. I'm working on a separate study session that they had directed already, so I probably won't be able to schedule that or even look at what that looks like until closer to the summer, because we're looking at an April date for the other one. And there is going to be, between all of our commissions and advisory boards, some intersection between the two. And I can't recall the nexus of how the commission started receiving information on vehicle accidents, but if I recall it, it wasn't something that was always provided to the commission. And
well, someone getting killed by a car would probably come through the sheriff's department, right? That wouldn't go to a transportation commission.
But would that have been reported? Like, is that under the purview of the Public Safety Commission to evaluate a traffic collision, even if it was a fatal one? That still is the sheriff's responsibility.
Right.
And so, but what I'm saying is
onerous.
I don't know if that needed to be included in the report that comes to you. And so that wasn't always part of the report that came to you. And so that might be another question that the council needs to decide is how much how much information from the sheriff's department, aside from crime data, that they want this commission to receive.
So there is a question I will have later for the Sheriff's Department and staff about Part 2 and Part 1 crime, how it's defined, so everyone knows. But yeah, that is a good question, because it is reported as Part 2 crime.
Okay. And maybe that was because of what the person was doing when the traffic collision occurred.
Okay. So that was my question on the intersection there and just a better understanding of how to address that. And then I also saw a bullet there about promoting and maintaining communications with the public relative to public safety. That was a bullet you had. Something like the emergency preparedness plan that the city has on the website. The latest document is 2017. And I know that this commission had also received a report from the after action report from the fires, and I think it was a June 2025 draft. What would our purview be for asking for an update for the emergency response plan?
During commissioner comments, if you said I'm interested in receiving an update from staff on that, and if your colleagues agree, you could put a motion on the floor to request that it come to a future meeting.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Post?
Hi, yes, thank you for the presentation. Commissioner Pilarski asked my question just thinking about the timeline for the study session with transportation, but my follow-up question is, for generally joint commission activities, there's lots of overlap between human services, and even the Women's Advisory Board has talked about public safety recently. Yeah. Are we able to work with those commissioners outside of our formal meetings? I know events like drink spiking education or test strip dispersal and doing walks has sounded like it's something that those commissioners have done in the past and worked together to do. Is that something that we should post to staff to help us organize? Because I think it would be great to have an external activity doing that, coming from both the Public Safety Commission and some of these other commissions that have talked about that type of outreach.
Yeah, so I want to say the time has really, 2020 seems like yesterday and 300 years ago, but I want to say 2 or 3 years ago, we had a study session on nighttime safety, and it was several commissions and boards together talking about, it was the rollout of the drink spiking strips, and it was a very collaborative effort. And as part of some of the discussions that we're having in the Code of Conduct Subcommittee with the council members is, how do we, under the Brown Act, because we have that, Brown Act law that we have to abide by, allow for more of this type of collaborative conversation? How do we do that? And in the past, we've had meetings where it was the chair and the vice chair, and they were held like monthly or quarterly, and that was an opportunity for them to come together and talk about things that they're working on and things that they want to move forward. And they work for a little while, and then they kind of start going away, and they stop working to some extent because the desire is gone. There's been talks about having something where it's like one member from every commission and board. So it's trying to figure out the balance between allowing that to occur and what it looks like and remaining compliant with the Brown Act. Because I agree there should be more opportunities for those type of intersected activities. And it may be, that you do have the drink spiking test strip, and you go to the bars in the Rainbow District, and it's less than a quorum, or it's 2 appointed officials from each commission, and it's agendized, and we do that in an open meeting so people understand what we're doing and why you're out there. And I think because you're not a quasi-judicial commission, there's less of a fear of decisions being made outside of the room, but it allows for that collaborative stuff to happen, which I think would be helpful and would maybe address some of the things that you can't do in this room because it's not within your purview, but you can still feel like you're having some influence and some input into some of those things that fall outside of your purview. So thank you. I mean, it is something we've been thinking about and trying to figure out how to do.
Yeah, and in my mind, some of those events fall almost in terms of like the socials that the city puts on, you know what I mean, that you're not necessarily talking or taking action on. So I hope we can find that solution, but appreciate that background.
Thank you.
Commissioner Winnick?
Yes, thank you. I had a follow-on question. I actually had much the same question as Commissioner Post, but also I'm so happy that we have the Transportation and Mobility Commission liaison here, and I would like to know, because to me there's a very strong nexus between our concerns and theirs, but it seems to me that also may be true of the Elder Commission and the Disabilities Commission, and
All the commissions.
do we have liaisons with all of the, do they all
Yes.
come so that we get to hear the concerns of the various commissions that they're addressing?
They don't all come, but there is, out of most of the 16 commissions and advisory boards, there is a liaison to the commission.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Hallman?
Thank you, Chair. Refresh my memory. A couple of commissions ago, I know we did do a walk where we went through the Rainbow District and we did pass out
The test strips.
test strips. And Director Rivas, I'm sure you remember, how did we do that then without,
We- Yeah, because it was a culmination of that nighttime study session, and then it was scheduled to happen, I think at like 5 or 5:30 before the council meeting, and I want to say there was a press conference too that occurred, and then after the press conference, went and did the test strip handout, and the council members returned, and we had the council meeting.
Okay. So is that something that's possible for us to revisit?
Sure. Yeah.
Because I do feel that we have become a little lax, and we do need to be vigilant and make sure that, you know, all bars are aware and that they have the tools that they can provide to patrons in the Rainbow District, especially as we get into spring and summer, you know, our busier season.
Yeah, the Women's Advisory Board, and I think it was in conjunction with the Public Safety Commission, used to do their No Means No campaign, and they would have the little, I call them coasters, but you know, they were things that could be placed anywhere, urinals, toilets, and they would have an event, and they would go through the Rainbow District, and it was an annual thing that happened at the same time every year, and maybe it was like right before Pride started or something like that, but it's something that, you know, I could talk with Larissa about and how we could potentially bring that back.
Okay, great. I think that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, because it was mentioned, the liaison to the Women's Advisory Board spoke under public comment at the last council meeting and was talking about the drink spiking strips and all of that. And I know that, I believe it was Councilmember Meister that mentioned the No Means No campaign. So, you know, I think during COVID, a lot of the things that we did before kind of fell off. And so it's just kind of bringing them back into the forefront of everyone's mind, and sometimes it takes an incident occurring for that to happen, but you know, maybe in May that's a good idea before Pride.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I could have a question about trends. You talked about trends, so are we only pulling trends from the reports, or can you define that a little bit more, similar to the question of livability, which I'm thankful you're looking into that because that's broad. And I think this is important as Public Safety Commission for the public to hear as well. Sometimes I think there's confusion about what we're able to do.
Yeah.
So this is extremely helpful, and hopefully we'll answer questions. But specifically on the trends topic, because that came up a few times during your presentation, I'd like to hear maybe a little bit more of a definition.
What's a trend?
What's a trend? I mean,
So-
I have an idea of what they are, but
If you don't know, I also do risk management for the city. And so when we're looking at trends when it comes to liability and risk, you're typically looking at 5 years. Like what's happened over the last 5 years. It's really tough right now with that data set because you have almost an entire year of people not coming outdoors in the same way. And even in 2021 and maybe 2022, it still wasn't, at the pre-pandemic level. I don't know if we'll ever be pre-pandemic. I think that might be redefined as to what we are and what's normal. But that's typically when you're looking at trends, it's 5 years. And, but there are, instances that occur that spike the trend, if that makes sense. And it rises to such a level that it has to be addressed quicker than over a 5-year period. Potholes, for example, it's a really good one, and because we'll see an uptick in pothole claims after rain, because rain and asphalt and what we use to make streets, the rain causes them to come apart, especially at the curb and gutter side. And so you can typically expect to see that happen along with other things related to rain. But that's what I look at is 5 years, and that's a general rule of thumb.
okay. Thank you.
welcome.
Vice Chair Blow.
Thank you, Chair. So if we followed the looking at trends and not specific incidents advice here, that would see, for example, from the sheriff's report, the removal of, the reporting on vehicle versus pedestrian, vehicle versus bicycle incidents, DUI arrest details, traffic incident, collision portions, and other accidents with scooters. And then from the fire, and correct me if I'm wrong with any of this, from the fire report as well, on a monthly basis, we get, details on big fire incidents, whether it be cooking fire, structure
Dumpster
fire,
fire.
dumpster fire, that kind of a
There was
thing.
a trend of dumpster fires.
Yeah, or arson or anything like that. So I think getting clarity on what should and shouldn't be, I think maybe that's an area where we're getting kind of lost in what our scope is and isn't, as opposed to maybe just looking at bigger trends. And so maybe the question is, do we get monthly data, or is that going to distract even if it's just aggregate? Okay, so then question with respect to commission purview overlap that we were talking about briefly. You mentioned the liaison is meant to be the method for, directing those conversations that appear in one commission to maybe the proper one. But my understanding with that liaison role is that the liaisons themselves can't really speak on behalf of the commission that they're coming from. Like, they can't editorialize, that's to say. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, because if that's not right, then that's something that we could change. But practically speaking, as an example here, if this happens, if we're getting community feedback here, because they're thinking about it from a public safety perspective, about an unsafe intersection, Doheny and Cynthia, for example, would then the correct way for that to proceed forward be for just the transportation and mobility liaison to go and report and just say, hey, this came up, period? Like, no, nothing else?
Well, I would say, did the information come from a member of the public?
Yes, in this example.
And it was just one member of the public who brought it forward?
I think this one's had multiple members of the public. Over time, certainly it's come up many times, again and again. And there's similar sorts of instances, whether it's unsafe intersections or, like scooter issues on sidewalks, mobility concerns as well, that come up here.
So there's
because it feels like for the community, certainly, I think there's also a confusion of scope and purview about what we're supposed to be doing here as well.
So I think there's a couple things. The first thing is that staff may be aware that we're already looking at the intersection of Doheny and Cynthia, because we've either heard from the Transportation and Mobility Commission, we've heard from the council, or we've heard from the community. And so we're already looking at the intersection. So typically Anita or Danny, like part of their like after action commission work is taking some of those things and reaching out to Richard Garland and Walter Davis and saying, this came up, are you aware of it? Do you know if we're doing anything around it? And if they're not, then, you know, to the liaison, like, yes, please elevate this to the Transportation and Mobility Commission and let them know this has come, a couple of people have spoken about this. I know some questions have come up around like the tree removals. And just to give a little bit of background, you know, we have a street tree master plan, and it talks about all of the trees that we have in the city and identifies the ones that have problems because they're diseased, and what our plan is to remove them over a period of time. And so when this came up, this was the 4th time we were doing a set of removals for the trees, and someone just happened to catch it, and it became, but it's a public facilities, recreation, and infrastructure. They oversee trees for the city. But if people came here and were talking about that, then that would be the liaison to just say, hey, we got a bunch of people who came to speak to us about the trees. It may be helpful if staff does like a quick presentation to help people understand about our street tree master plan, that we understand what's going on with these trees, et cetera, to give a little bit more context. I'm trying to think of the other example that you used. But that's, when I think of the liaison role, it's here's what's come to us that people thought was in our purview. It really falls under you guys. Here's what we're hearing, and I'm coming on behalf of this commission to share that information with you.
And then just leaving it at that, not editorializing, like,
What
we
you think
agree
they
that
should
this
do.
intersection
Right.
is bad, or
Because you don't know
kind of a thing.
that. I mean, what I'll even, I'm not a transportation engineer or planner, so I couldn't say if even if 5 people came and said that they thought the intersection was, I'm not an expert in that field, and so it's bringing it to someone's attention and letting the experts do their job.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Any comments from the public or any public speakers?
Yes, we have one public speaker, Anita Goswami. If you want to approach the podium, you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi there, thank you. I'm Anita Goswami. I'm a longtime resident of the city of West Hollywood. Couple of things. The purview did not look at substantive areas. I think it was great to look at the policies and to provide that information, but it's like, you know, dinner without an entree. A couple of specific questions. I know there was one from the council with a public comment recently. How can intersections not be in the Public Safety Commission purview? There's 98 total traffic reports this month, as we'll see in the sheriff's report. Intersections are part of it. As part of traffic and safety, I posit that parking is part of this too. For example, recent decision, planning commissions, they're reducing parking requirements for development projects. That's something, if you're not aware of, just to be sure that you are aware of that. There'll be a zone text amendment coming up in a couple of weeks where the Planning Commission will be looking at parking and changing parking requirements across the city. And I would look that the potential end result of that is going to show up on the safety reports that we see here. I fear there is much hiding behind the Brown Act and behind state mandates. So I am concerned about that. I see these kinds of actions where there isn't that focus on the substance as hollowing out local government by strengthening silos and concentrating at a council level. And I see this where it's a, gee, you can't talk to someone. I just look at these silos and I say, wait a minute, that's not right. Now, that said, we have some fantastic people and programs here in the city of West Hollywood. We have got fantastic, just the sheriffs, the ambassadors, the fire department. I know you've just incredible people who are here. We have some great people at the city who have been here. We've got great, just throughout. I've been here for 38 years, and I am thrilled that I am here. I applaud the actions to treat West Hollywood as one city. I applaud these actions to have more of the liaisons reporting to each other, have more of that. And I think we need to treat West Hollywood as one city, not separated by commission or policy, united in our goals for a safe and a livable city. And I think that's something we all really need to get back to, is get rid of the silos and really start looking at us as one city again. That's what brought us here. That's what we need to do to thrive. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anita. And that is all the public comments.
Thank you. Item 9B is the Los Angeles County Fire Department. Who provide their January. Melissa, thank you. Sorry. Thank you very much for your report.
Outstanding. Good evening, Commission, and some new faces. Hello, I'm Drew Smith. I'm your fire chief for West Hollywood. So I've been here almost 7 years, and I love it. Your West Hollywood firefighters are doing great. They're motivated. This is our training season, but every day is a training day. I know what we've come up with over the past 6 months or so. You want to see some correlation between 25 and 26. So for 26, we had a total of 6 fires for the reporting month of January. And that is actually down 15 from 2025, where we had 21. Medical calls are right on track. We're up this January from last. We're up 90, so this we went on 555, 107 which required advanced life support, and 235 which required basic life support, and so we're up 90 from last year. Our hazardous condition, or now is categorized as situation, and I'll talk to that here in a little bit. We're equal with a total of 2, or actually we're 2 for 26, total of 4, so we're down 2 for this year. I'm sorry, I misread my line. Hazmat calls, we had 4 in 2026, and we had 0 in 2025, so we're up 4. Public service calls, we had 21 for January, and we had 20, so we're up 1 for this January. Good intent calls, we had 114 as compared to 168, so we're down 54. Total responses, we're still averaging about 21 runs per day for the city, or West Hollywood. And this total responses for 2026 was 702 and 681. So we're up 21 for this year. I'll stop on that if there's any questions, and I have some other stuff to go over as we transition into. Is there any response totals or anything that we need to talk about? And I have some clarity on some other items.
Commissioners, questions? Okay.
Okay, so we have a new national fire reporting system. So the way that Megan and myself have to extract the information, there's different categories, and it just started in January. So it's a new system. So it's like kind of getting a new car. It used to be a key, now it's a push. So it's a little bit different. So it's like getting in a rental car. It's a little bit different. So we're still it might be a little clunky at first, but once we get how we want to extract the data, we're going on the same amount of runs, but sometimes they're categorizing it a little bit different. So it's going to, as we transition into February, we should have that streamlined. So a couple things that's different that you see a new category is rescue. What is a rescue? Well, that depends if we have to go rescue somebody. No, I'm kidding. It's so it'd be if like you have somebody stuck in an elevator, that would be categorized as a rescue rather than possibly an other type of call. So the way that the emergency reporting is done is going to be somewhat different. So there'll be some different categories that we're able to extract a little bit differently. One of the questions has come up also is, can we categorize PEH type of calls, person experiencing homelessness? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're looking at how that can be extracted if we can do that. But I can tell you at the end of the day, what matters to us is the patient care component, and then what sick or injuries that we treat, and then pick the right transportation method, whether it be advanced life support, basic life support, to get to the appropriate receiving hospital. So, but we'll look at how that maybe can be delivered on that. One other thing is a hazardous situation, which was called hazardous condition. Basically, it's a hazardous condition or situation is a power line that's down, or somebody says, hey, there's a line down, we determine that it's a utility line and it's a phone line. That is a hazardous situation. A hazardous materials call would be something that would be delivered in a narrative on there that says that it's a hazardous materials type of call that had some sort of substance that we had to deal with, the health hazmat and our hazardous materials teams. So I'd like to start with also as we get into March. That is when I feel our events start to happen. We start off with Los Angeles Marathon, and that preps us and primes us for as we get into Pride into June. So just so you know that we do a lot of training with our West Hollywood Sheriff's partners and a unified life safety presence on how we have unified command. We will be in that for LA Marathon. We'll be in unified command with, and I'll just talk to the public safety agencies, Los Angeles Fire Department, LAPD, West Hollywood Sheriffs, and LA County Fire. We also, what we do for West Hollywood is West Hollywood Sheriffs and your fire department, we are part of the unified command component, but it's one big orchestrated event. But we have sectioned off West Hollywood with our resources, but we can share those resources up and down the route. So what your fire department does is what I like to say, we set up shop. So we use Fire Station 7 as our drop point. We use that as a staging area. We have alternate communications. So we determine if a call comes in, if it's related to the marathon or not, because we have augmented staffing that supports the marathon. But if it's a jurisdictional Fire Station 7 or Fire Station 8 emergency, that's vetted through the dispatcher, so the right resource gets to the right emergency call with the right travel route to get there. So within the marathon, we have overhead in place. With chief officers, we bring up about a total of 20 extra pieces of equipment from bike teams, QRVs, and engines and paramedics just to support LA Marathon. However, it's a coordinated type of component to where if we need any of those resources for a West Hollywood issue, that's for the overhead to help direct through the communications process how that needs to happen. I know that's a lot, but we do the same thing for Pride. And with that, is there anything for me?
Vice Chair Blau, thank you.
Just a quick question on Station 8 itself. So I know that there's been an acknowledged need to perform upgrades to Station 8, I think owing to seismic concerns and maybe just some general wear and tear. Has there been any progress on, any plans or any timeline to get that done? And then secondarily, in the instance where we'll be doing that, I assume there would be a plan to, utilize additional capacity at Station 7 plus 7, 8, maybe there's a Station 9 on the east side as well to augment that?
So we have been going through upgrades, nothing for seismic. It's all been just stuff that needs to be replaced. So we did a lot of painting. We did our exhaust systems with our fire trucks that back into the station. So a lot of renovation that has gone in there. We have reports on how that we can't occupy that fire station if it's going to be a life safety hazard to your firefighters, our firefighters. So one thing we are looking at, as we all know, in the future is building a new fire station 8. And so that is still to be determined once we come up with how the building design is going to be, how it's going to look. So that is in the future. One thing about, you mentioned Fire Station 7, just down the street here on Sanford, a very large footprint at that station, and it can house a lot of people. But if we had to move everybody out of 8s and put them at 7s, it really delays the customer service delivery on the east end of the city. I mean, I don't know, there's a little bit of traffic everywhere. So that does delay things. So we are not going to take lightly the health and safety of our membership. So that is looked at very specifically with our construction and maintenance division on those inspections on how that needs to be done. So I know that's another long answer, but I like being here.
Yeah, and so all of that falls under the purview of, I guess, the county, and so then the Board of Supervisors helps, I guess, direct and
They
move
direct
that?
everything that we do. So yes, but that's the fire chief and then the bureau commander and then myself. So we look at that with our construction and maintenance division on any upgrades or what we need to do. But we're not going to leave our firefighters there if it's unsafe.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. And the last question, also related to Station 8, that I think maybe we could provide benefit with. How's the parking situation looking at Station 8? Because I know that was a point of mutual concern between the fighters themselves and the community as well. Has there been any resolution with parking?
If we all drove mopeds, it would be just fine. No, so it's challenging there because we have 13 members on duty. And in the morning when we do shift change between 6 and 8, we have 26 people there. And with the activity in the area, sometimes we have cars or the firefighters' vehicles that are parked where they can, waiting for the members to come back so they can shift trade. So it's not as clean as one might think on you're just stamping in and stamping out. So the parking is always a moving target. It's been good lately. I know there are some challenges with that, but we don't really have that many big complaints from our side right now.
Okay.
It's just challenging there with that many people.
That's what I want to keep a pulse on, because if it's something that becomes contentious, then I think that's something that the commission could make a recommendation to the city to try and help find a solution or broker some kind of solution, because you definitely don't want the firefighters to have any sort of friction coming in and out of the job as well.
Right. Yeah, no, and we appreciate that. One thing, we do have the alternate parking across the street, but let's just say that our firefighters get taken advantage of because they know whose car they have. We have a lot of break-ins in that lot because as people know that they park, they go to the station for 24 hours, maybe 48 hours, and it just leaves it open to chance sometimes. So it's not as ideal because it's not monitored like that. We have a lot of break-ins in our vehicles that are parked in that lot, unfortunately.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and thank you for the report.
Thank you. Commissioner Pilarski?
Thank you, Chair. Just a light question here. The new reporting system that you mentioned, when would we see as a commission the new report I don't know if you mentioned it, but I didn't.
So you have a dose of it on
A
this
dose,
one.
okay.
Just
I
a
like
dose of
that.
some of the word, but we're still going to work through that. So it'll have the same look, but you go, well, hey, if it's normalized you to see some of the different language on there, now it says this, I'll be able to interpret that for you. So at the end of the day, it's going to be all categorized, as you can see, relatively the same. It's just we have to extract the data differently because it's a totally different program. So we're going to have a learning curve on our end, but you will get all the information that you need.
Okay, so just, same business as usual, March 23rd.
It's all on
We'll
us.
see it all.
You'll have a
Okay,
happy
sounds
product.
good. And I wanted to say thank you so much for the detailed explanation of, the united response and the city's attention to these big events, because I know it's always on our minds, where everybody is and, how everybody's doing. So, yeah, marathon, Pride, Halloween, some of these big FIFA stuff, Olympic stuff. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for the support.
Commissioner Winnick?
Yes, thank you so much for the report. On a much more granular level, I took the CERT training, and I know the fire department does it from time to time. I personally thought it was really worthwhile. And I'm wondering if there are more CERT trainings planned in the next year.
There is. Our community service liaison, Megan Courier, has that. Raise your hand if you've been through CERT training. Outstanding. Twice, Todd? I like So, yes, we will be doing. So one thing that it is very beneficial, we really, really applaud those that get into the CERT program because it does play a role. So, yes, we will have more CERT classes coming up, and that'll be distributed. And we talked to Danny Rivas about that when they're going to come. But we have to do it to where it's beneficial, meaning we want people to be there and we want that community engagement. So we spread it out a little bit so we can get a big group and makes for some good synergy in those classes.
Thank you very much for the report. I just had a question when you were talking about the coordinated response and working with safety partners. You didn't mention our ambassadors, but I assume they're part of that as well in some capacity, or how
they would
are they?
Be, but on the law component, it's going to be managed by and how that integration happens with the sheriff. So meaning how we respond and all the resources we have. Your fire department manages the fire resources. The sheriffs will handle any of the law resources, and so how they're integrated will be done. But I can say that if they are there, they won't be like, I heard the word siloed. They won't be siloed. They will be part of that, but and that'll be handled with Captain Lampkin and how that's going to be integrated into LA Marathon.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Commissioner Post?
Yeah, I know you mentioned the elevator rescue. I've had a few concerns from residents, especially in older buildings. Elevators not operating properly, trying to prevent you all having to make as many of those rescues. Do you all do those inspections, or is there another LA County agency that folks should be reporting to?
So the fire department doesn't inspect elevators. So I would have to ask Danny how that sounds. We don't. We just go to them, open them, or we'll put them out of service. But we, on fires or any type of emergency evacuation needs, elevators are usually our last resort for stuff. It's stairwell type of issue. I'll let Danny answer that one.
Yeah, it's actually CalOSHA, so it's a state agency, and they have an elevator unit that actually comes out and does the inspections.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Do we have any public speakers at this time?
We have no public comment on this item.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for your report, as always.
Thank you.
Next up, we'll hear from our Allied Universal Security Ambassadors team, who'll provide us with January activities report. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity on sharing the Security Ambassador activity for January. I'll go ahead and get started. During January 2026, the program delivered 2,761 hospitality assists, 4,284 business contacts citywide. We documented a total of 529 unhoused contacts, responded to 204 calls for service, and provided 42 safety escorts to the community. The team also coordinated 26 sheriff assists, 24 EMS activations, and referred 98 calls to the homeless concern line. In comparison to January 2025, business contacts increased by 35%, hospitality assistance increased by 2.6%, and scooter corrections increased by 8%. Calls for service decreased by 37%, and unhoused contacts decreased by 31%. The program is currently staffed at 98% capacity, and we are operating at 100% training completion. And now I am open for questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Post, or is that Commissioner Holman?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your report. I would like to address, I have a couple of questions, but the first one is I want to address the ambassador incident with the unhoused person. I believe there's an investigation. I'm sure there are things you can't share with us, but what can you share as a result of that situation?
Yes. Due to confidentiality, the only thing that I could share is the investigation has been finalized and the ambassador has been removed from West Hollywood.
Okay. All right. Thank you. My other question, this has been brought to my attention by several residents. Is Allied Universal a subsidiary of G4S Security?
Can you repeat that again? I'm sorry.
Is Allied Universal a subsidiary of G4S Secure Solutions?
I can comment on that. Allied Universal and G4S did merge. They are now one company.
They're one company. Okay, yes. Great. Does G4S assist the government with deportation and transportation services?
I don't have any information on that, so I couldn't provide an answer. We primarily, Valerie and myself, we focus on the local account here and the work of safeguarding the people.
Okay, can we find that out? Because residents are asking.
Yeah, so Commissioner Hammond, so yeah, it's definitely something that you can communicate and make a request for. I do, and I understand the sensitivity and the importance of that, given the fact, obviously, that residents have come and brought this to your attention. But I also just want to be cognizant of the monthly report that we have before and sticking to the statistics and the data trend. But I think maybe considering during commissioner comments, if that's something maybe to bring forth at that time, and then we can review that with the city clerk and the city attorney's office and circle back with the commission, if that makes sense.
Okay. My last question, I got a message yesterday from a resident that was in West Hollywood Park. They were waiting to attend a class with their small toddler. They said they were on the sidewalk, sitting on the sidewalk, and the ambassador asked them to move, which confused the resident because other people were in the area. The resident didn't feel that it was a racial situation. The resident felt maybe it was because the ambassador felt that maybe they were unhoused. And this is a long-time resident. So my question is, what type of training is done through your program so that the ambassadors can differentiate between maybe someone who's just waiting for a class or waiting with, or over someone who might be more problematic in the area? How do they differentiate? Because this individual was really taken aback by what happened.
Yes. We go through very specific training through Allied. We go through the dealing with unhoused training, and it's very specific. It gives ambassadors examples on how to deal with certain situations, how to determine when someone's unhoused. But as far as the specific situation that you're giving us, it's unfortunate, and I do apologize for that. I would have to look into the matter.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Just, I thank you very much for the report. Just a quick question on the incident that happened, which obviously got massive media attention, which West Hollywood always seems to. I assume, can you answer how long that individual was employed by Allied? And had they obviously went through full training, all the training that you offer, which happens with every security ambassador before they're deployed?
I can comment on that. The officer was part of the program before we came in October, and then they were hired on subsequent to that.
Part of what program?
Part of the ambassador program, sorry.
So block by block?
Yes, yes. And so basically they were hired in October as a direct Allied Universal employee. And as part of that hiring process, all the standard training that goes into our new hire orientation, along with all of the program-specific training that is part of the training regimen that we have here with the ambassador program.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Pilarski?
Thank you, Chair. Hello, good evening. I have just some quick questions here. Question about escorts. Would a resident be able to request a bike escort?
Absolutely.
Okay, so you could do foot or bike?
That is correct.
Awesome. And then a question on staff communications. So do you, in your specific West Hollywood group, have an email that goes around to like bring your ambassadors up to date on what's happening in the city?
We do. We actually have an application within Allied. It's
Okay.
part of the system that we use.
Okay.
Additionally, at every shift change, there is a briefing that happens at every shift start.
Okay,
as
great.
well. Yeah.
Good to know. Because I asked that question just because I had asked some of the ambassadors if they knew what was going on with this incident or if they had worked with that gentleman in the past. And I would say 50-50 had no idea what I was talking about. So I'm just giving some feedback on that.
Vice Chair Blau?
Thank you. And thank you for the report. So part of our goal here, I guess, should be reviewing staffing levels and making sure that we're adequate. To that end, in the sheriff's report, we get the time it takes for a call to be responded to. I'm wondering if there's a way that we could do something more analogous here for some of the different types of categories in here. I'm thinking, calls for service, safety escorts, how much time it takes practically for after someone asks for a safety escort, maybe through the hotline or whatever method until that item is resolved. That might help us understand, hey, like your staffing's great. Or like, ooh, you know what, there's a big backlog. It takes a long time for any of these calls or maybe a subcategory of these calls to be responded to. Maybe that means, we can make a recommendation in one way or another. Is it possible that we could look at something like that? I don't know, get your creative juices flowing in that regard. I think that would be beneficial to how we could look at this. I know it's a little bit different, certainly, from the sheriff report as well, because they're not necessarily coming from kind of one spot or another. You're kind of diffused throughout the city anyways, but I think that would be beneficial to help us understand, hey, are you good at the staffing level 98% that you're at right now, or do we need to bump that up?
Something we can look into. I will also say that just kind of based on what we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, we're able to get the most calls very quickly. Again, while I don't have specific timelines and numbers for you, we are often getting feedback that we are responding in a prompt manner. And I would also say that, and Valerie, correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I can tell, we're not generally in a situation where we are backlogged and struggling to respond to calls in a timely manner. And Valerie, please chime in there.
That is correct, Alan.
Yeah.
Yes, and as far as the team itself, whenever we get these service calls, we are advising the team, whether it's the supervisor, myself, we're reminding them, let's make sure we respond in a timely manner, and we are responding within 15 minutes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Post?
Yeah, going back to the physical altercation, you did mention some of the training that they all go through. Does that include de-escalation training? Does that include, again, you spoke, I think, around that they have a specific training around homelessness as well. Are those in coordination with any city partners? And then my other question is, what is the technical protocol for maybe a physical altercation? Is that to call the sheriffs immediately and just kind of walk us through what that normal process might look like?
Yes, they do go through a de-escalation training, and protocol will be to call the sheriff deputies. Correct.
Commissioner Eng?
Thank you, Chair. You all mentioned that the ambassador involved in the fight was removed. Had he had any disciplinary actions prior to this? And I guess the second question would be, what is your process for removal?
As far as prior disciplinary actions, unfortunately, I can't disclose those. But as far as the process for removals, we conduct the investigation, and based on the findings, that's how we determine whether the ambassador is being removed or not.
I'll add to that, without divulging any specific disciplinary action, et cetera. The officer to that point in time was a pretty exemplary ambassador for the team, both from feedback we've had from his prior time during the block period and throughout Allied Universal's administration of the program. So it was out of character and it was a disappointment. Yeah, but we had no indication that we had a potential problem.
Okay, thank you. And I know that the video that was widely shared on social media showed the point of contact. Do we know what happened prior to that, or what initiated the altercation?
There is additional information, and that's in our report that was provided to the city. So it's all present there. There is one specific video that is probably the most widely circulated and the one that was most widely publicized in the media. There are other videos out there that do show some of the timeline up until that video starts. To give some context, none of it exonerates our team, to put it simply. We made mistakes. We did not take appropriate steps to de-escalate, and that's entirely squarely on us. Yes.
Commissioner Holman?
Thank you, Chair. An additional question. What are the current routes that the team takes? Because do they do the La Brea corridor between Santa Monica and Fountain?
They do, yes. Yes, they do.
Okay, because again, there have been questions where residents say they're not seeing anyone patrolling in that area. And there's a lot of activity that goes on La Brea, especially around the bus shelter that's on the northeast side in front of the Huxley.
We do have patrols. We have vehicle patrols, bicycle patrols as well too, but I'll definitely make a note of that.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Eng?
Thank you, Chair. Actually, this is just in response to Commissioner Holman. I actually saw an allied vehicle, I think yesterday, in Commissioner Post's neighborhood where I walk my dogs. I had never seen a ambassador vehicle before. Is that something new? Because I never saw that with the prior company.
We've had them since October, since we started. Unfortunately, we did have two of our trucks, which were the usual Tacomas that you might have seen maybe. They were out for service, but at the moment, we still have two ambassador vehicles that are patrolling. Yes.
And Commissioner Egg, just for the commission, that's not something new. The prior vendor also provided vehicles. You just may not have seen them. But, yeah.
Thank you. Do we have any public speakers at this time?
Yes, we have one public speaker, Michael Pasiti. If you want to approach the podium, you'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Hello, commissioners. Thank you, Allied. I like the new uniforms. You're very noticeable, and I know you're still new to the city, but I do appreciate the visibility. It would be nice if you all showed some of these statistics on the screen, actually, for those of us that are in public. I know we've talked about this before, so we can follow around. You know, I need to get a bigger iPad maybe when I come to the meetings. I have noticed a few trends that I wanted to mention, you know, particularly around, the unhoused community. I like the app. The app is working well, and I'm getting callbacks, so I think that's really good feedback that I thought I would share with you all. As far as the incident that happened, you know, I hope, you know, these type of things or the multiple assaults or assault that happens would be referred to the Sheriff's Department for investigation so that this can be a de-escalated situation for the community. We are a sensitive community, and I think that should be looked at. I'm still seeing a lot of trends on Fairfax, right? We have a security ambassador station there, and I still see, you know, I walk the city, so I don't like driving. It's the New York in me, I can't shake it. But, you know, when we have a station across and I can see the same person when I go to, you know, sleeping in the bus here, we had a sale happening out there. I alerted the security ambassadors, but when I'm walking, you know, I would like to see a little bit more proactiveness, or I would hope that would. And that's a trend that I see in walking down to Plumbers Park and coming back. I live right across from City Hall. They're my neighbors. And I would really like to encourage us, you know, to look at these public safety contracts. You know, what are the deliverable measurables that what I see as a call tick sheet? The statistics and the data that I'm seeing is alarming, right? Calls are down 50%. That could be because we changed the number or whatnot, but that if in my tech world and my data world, and God we trust, everyone else brings us data, that's how we manage these things, right? And so are we delivering measurable improvements? How are our service levels being evaluated? Maybe that's something we can think about putting on the reports. What are the call response times? Are the app, you know, being responded to faster than calls? So I use these services a lot. I depend on them, and I'm grateful for them, but it would be good to know and see some of these statistics around here. You know, what are the core functions that we're expected from each of these services, and are they being met, right? And I think I mentioned the screen sharing again. My eyes are getting old, and I cannot see anymore. So I'd be really grateful if we could see some of this stuff. And probably the members that can't be here often watch on TV as well. That would be great for us to see, and maybe relook at some of this measurement for all of our contracts when it comes to public safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And that is all for the public comments.
Thank you very much. No, it wasn't an easy week, but appreciate your transparency and accountability.
Thank you.
Yes, and your service. Thank you. Next up, I'll let you get back to your seats first. We'll hear from our Sheriff's Department. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. For the month of January, West Hollywood Station personnel handled a total of 1,592 calls for service. 91 of those calls were for an emergency response. Deputies made 53 felony arrests and 101 misdemeanor arrests in January. Our Part 1 crimes for the month, we had 145 incidents. And when you break those down by district, the West accounted for 56% with 82 incidents. City Center 19% with 27 incidents, East 25% with 36 Part 1 crimes. There were a total of 13 pickpocket thefts. Our MET team responded to a total of 71 incidents for January, and our SORT submissions were 43. Our West Hollywood Station volunteers donated a total of 265 and a half hours in January, and our volunteers continue to be a critical asset at the station. I wanted to touch on some traffic incidents which occurred in the city in the month of January. There were a total of 3 vehicle versus pedestrian traffic collisions. Of the 3, 1 collision was caused by party 1 being the driver, and 1 of the 3 was caused by the pedestrian, and 1 is still under investigation at this time. Also for the month of January, 3 vehicle versus bicyclist collisions occurred, and all 3 of those collisions are still under investigation. 1 vehicle versus scooter accident occurred, and the operator of the electric scooter was found to be at fault. In January, a large-scale traffic enforcement operation took place on Sunset Boulevard. 2 arrests were made for misdemeanor driving offenses. 82 citations were issued for violations such as turning violations, speeding, and a number of cell phone violations. I also wanted to report that of the 9 aggravated assaults in the month of January, 6 arrests have been made. Our entertainment policing team is continuing to be present outside of the bars and clubs and have been conducting focused enforcement on illegal vending. We are working diligently with our law enforcement partners in the city of West Hollywood for the upcoming Los Angeles Marathon, as well as the Elton John after party, both scheduled in the month of March. I also wanted to note Sergeant Luevino and myself met with the Bicycle Coalition on January 27th, and we were able to address a number of concerns and take feedback for future bicycle safety within the city. And at the January 26th Public Safety Commission, some questions were raised regarding the First Amendment auditor, who often has a table in front of West Hollywood Station. I stated I would come back with information regarding that individual. In 2025, West Hollywood Station authored 3 incident reports involving this individual. And in 2026, 3 reports have already been authored involving the same individual. In 2025, the individual who sets up the table was the victim on 2 reports and a suspect victim on the 3rd report. And in 2026, the individual who sets up the table was a suspect victim on 2 reports and a suspect on the 3rd report. And with that, I'll go ahead and open it up to questions.
Thank you. I just have one. Thank you very much for the report. Maybe 2 in the weeds are technical, but the scooter incident that you mentioned, where the scooter was at fault, is that just a moving violation? What happens in those situations? They're ticketed? What? Yeah,
yes,
typical of, okay.
They're ticketed.
Okay.
Yes.
Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Pilarski?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the really comprehensive update. And I also want to say thank you so much for following up with us on the things that we ask you. That we really appreciate that. I have a couple questions, but I wanted to start with the Part 1 versus Part 2 crimes, and I'm sad that our city clerk is no longer here, but could you give us an explanation as to what we're looking at when we're looking at Part 1 versus Part 2? Because this also came up at City Council when we were looking at the semi-annual report.
Of course, no problem. So Part 1 crimes are serious violent and property crimes, and those were defined by the FBI's crime index back in 1930.
Okay.
Those 8 crimes include murder, rape, robbery, aggravated assault, burglary, larceny, theft, vehicle burglaries, and I guess the most recent one that was added to that cachet was arson.
Okay.
And then Part 2 crimes are defined as your less serious offenses. They include simple assaults such as batteries, fraud, drug violations, gambling, and a number of others.
Okay. If someone was vehicular manslaughter, that's a Part 2 crime?
It is considered a Part 2 crime, yes.
Interesting. Okay. But gun violence would be considered Part 1?
If we're speaking gun violence as far as murder,
Murder,
absolutely
yeah.
a Part 1 crime, yes.
But vehicular murder, not a Part 1?
Not a Part 1 crime.
Got it. Okay. Good to know. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I had a question about the DUI versus drunk driving. I noticed that in our drunk driving Part 2 crimes there's 7, but in the DUI crimes there's 8. So in Part 2 crime, do we cover the full DUI, or do we just cover alcohol related?
We would be covering the full DUI, so I'd have to look into that discrepancy to see why it exists.
Just the difference in numbers. Okay, thank you. So it's on our report as drunk driving, but it's meant to be DUI, all impairments. Okay. And I had a question about something that came up on the semi-annual report around the motor units versus the vehicular units. So I just wanted to get some clarity around that. So there was a comment made that the motor units, which would be our motorcycle units, are focused on citations, where our cars are focused on investigations and, filing reports and things like that. So when we hear some conversations around the friction that we're seeing between cars and people in the city of LA, not just West Hollywood. And I'm going to give a hypothetical, but so say there's an intersection and someone runs a red light and there's a vehicle unit there sitting at the intersection. One would expect the vehicle unit to go give the gentleman or woman or whomever that ran the person who ran the red light a ticket, or would that be more of a motor unit, motorcycle focus?
If a deputy were to observe that violation, also sitting at the light, if it is safe to do so and go out against the red light into traffic to apprehend that person, then I think the expectation would be to absolutely stop that driver and, warn or issue a citation for that offense. And that doesn't have to be a traffic unit or a motor unit. It could be any.
It can be any unit.
It could be any unit that's out.
Okay, I just wanted to clear that up because it didn't necessarily come across that way when it was said. Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Eng.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to sort of piggyback on what Commissioner Polarski just mentioned. Let me see my cogent thoughts here. There is vehicular violence. We know that. It seemed that what Commissioner Polarski was distinguishing, when we talk about, like, say, a manslaughter, can you differentiate, like if it's road rage, I presume that that's a Part 1 crime, right? Can you maybe explain how it works with vehicular violence, the levels of, say, Part 1 and Part 2?
I think the best way I could explain it is if we take a report for a road rage incident, where someone is trying to use their vehicle to, essentially assault somebody else, then that would be an assault with a deadly weapon report, potentially, and that could be a Part 1 crime. Now, if someone, is driving under the influence of alcohol and kills somebody, then that's considered a Part 2 crime.
Thank you. And then I'm going to switch gears here. I was made aware before the meeting that there was another incident with the same gentleman that was in the fight with Allied. And evidently what I understand is that there was an assault, but just between two people on the street, and that both of these individuals, I don't know if it's both or one has been arrested, and I'm wondering if you can discuss that at all.
I don't have all the details. As I was walking out, there was an individual in our jail who did catch my attention, but I don't have all the details to report on that at this very minute. But I'm happy to report back.
Okay, because again, I know that I was sent those photos as I was driving over. I didn't check until I parked, but I was sent the photos before I drove over. Thank you.
Commissioner Post.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Two quick things on the annual report. One, I just wanted to thank the Met team, just for folks' reference of what we get for West Hollywood's Met team. The average response for the rest of the county was 46 minutes. The Met team was an average of 7 minutes here in West Hollywood. So to be able to have that response and that quickness, really, I think, has saved lives, and specifically you all called out preventing 6 use of force interactions. And I was just wondering how that was measured. Is it like a weapon being reported from the scene, or kind of how was that number specifically measured?
I will report back on that. I'm not sure exactly how they measure that. I think there's a number of factors involved, but to give you accurate information, I'll report back next time on that.
No worries, and great job on, again, preventing that use of force. The other thing I noticed from the annual update was the drug arrests that were made from 2025 to 2024. Specifically, meth arrests went from 92 to 113. Fentanyl arrests went from 1 to 13. Cocaine, 17 to 29. I cite these because I also saw that Sheriff Luna himself earlier last week cited Prop 36 as being a major cause to the increase of our jail population. And I just wanted to get a sense if West Hollywood is contributing to that issue. Has Prop 36 changed enforcement tactics at all, or has that really been reflected just on the back end via sentencing? And just wanted to see if you had any thoughts on that situation with Prop 36. And my question to Danny as well later would be, has the city in the past deprioritized certain enforcement actions? And is that something that the city can do around specific laws?
So I'll answer the first part of that question. I think we take Prop 36 very seriously. Whenever we bring someone into jail, we're running their criminal history to see if they have those convictions that make them eligible for charging them with a felony. So I think deputies are out there because they know that when they go to court, they're not just being released, or they're not given a citation anymore. They're actually staying in jail. A magistrate review is being done, and they're staying in jail until they go to court instead of being cited and released. So I think that Prop 36 has definitely helped, and also created, I think, additional motivation among the deputies.
And then in regards to deprioritizing, the city council has adopted resolutions in the past to, provide their stance, right, and their perspective. It's not something that the sheriff's department, obviously, if they come across something or they're responding to a call for service, they're still going to address that. But they have taken action in the past as it relates to that. So it can be done, but that's something that, could be recommended to the city council to consider and adopted by resolution.
Awesome, thank you. And then one quick question as well, separately. I know there was a woman, it might have been last month or the month prior, that I believe was unhoused and passed away at one of the bus stops at La Brea in Santa Monica. And there was another instance back in August or September where a man had passed away at Fairfax in Santa Monica. And I wanted to see if there was any update in terms of that passing. I know you all said there's a more prolonged investigation when someone like that is discovered deceased. And again, if any updates for either of those situations or just that process generally would be great.
So the most recent incident, I actually checked in with the coroner's office, I believe last week, and there was still no updated cause of death to be determined yet. Okay. And as far as the older incident, I would have to look into that.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Commissioner Holman.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your report. I watched the public safety report during the city council meeting, and Captain Lapkin made a couple of mentions. I just want to make sure I have them correct and see if we have any metrics. I believe she mentioned the mobile security trailer. Do we have a mobile security trailer now that can be moved around?
Yes, we do, sir.
And is it new in play? Do we have any statistics on that, on how it's working?
So last month, I reported that it had been deployed on Melrose near a store that had repeated, theft going on, and it was a deterrent that month, where we weren't seeing multiple incidents over and over again of theft at this retail store. It's currently in a residential neighborhood right now, and the trailer is moved around based on coordination between the Sheriff's Department and Mr. Rivas on where it's placed.
And we also have the real-time fixed cameras, correct, throughout the city. How many do we currently have in, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, are we getting additional ones that are also going to be installed?
I believe we have 6 currently installed, and I believe Mr. Reeves can speak to when the others will be up and running.
There we go, turning on the mic. So yeah, what I did provide as a part of the semi-annual community safety update when asked by council is we currently have 6 fixed cameras that are installed, and we are planning on installing the remainder. The total would be 54 total. So we're planning on bringing an item back to the council as a result of a directive that council gave regarding flock safety agreement and in review of that. And so at that time, we should probably be in the ballpark of about half of the fixed cameras. So we're planning to go to city council by March 16th of this year. So we're looking at increasing from 6 to about 20, 24 or so of the 54 cameras.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Eng.
Thank you, Chair. I just actually wanted to take a moment to honor your fallen officer. I'm aware that you lost Brian Sneed. I heard the adjournment motion, and I saw the emotionality that that Captain Labkin was expressing, and I just want to take a moment to honor the officer and to pay my respects to the department, and to say that that I know that the Mental Health Wellness Center is coming in, and it seems like that might be something that you all hope will help with morale.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any public speakers at this time?
We have no public comment.
Thank you very much for your report and your work and your service. And next up, the Public Safety Commission will receive an overview of resources available to the immigrant community.
Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the Commission. At your request from the January 26, 2026 meeting, we are presenting an informational overview of the City of West Hollywood's response to federal immigration enforcement activities and the resources available to our immigrant community members. The city remains committed to protecting the safety, dignity, and constitutional rights of all residents, regardless of immigration status. This evening's presentation will outline the city's coordinated response to federal immigration enforcement activity, the resources currently available to immigrant residents, and the city's ongoing actions to support and protect vulnerable community members. The efforts are organized across 5 key areas, including direct services, education and awareness, legal action, community safety, and advocacy and lobbying. West Hollywood has long been a leader in advancing inclusion, equality, and human rights. The City of West Hollywood's role in ensuring public safety, protecting civil rights, and maintaining trust with the community. These 5 focus areas reflect a coordinated and meaningful strategy to support immigrant residents during the times of uncertainty. Through the city's Human Services and Rent Stabilization Department, the city provides direct support to immigrant residents. This includes connections to legal assistance, rental assistance, and housing stabilization support, food resources, crisis intervention services, and referrals to trusted community-based providers. We actively promote these services through our multilingual You Are Not Alone campaign in English, Spanish, and Russian, with materials displayed throughout the community. Residents seeking support may contact our Human Services Division at 323-848-6510. The city strongly encourages immigrant community members to stay informed about their legal rights. The city distributes Know Your Rights materials in English, Spanish, and Russian and maintains updated information on the website, which can be found at weho.org/knowyourrights. We also share updates from the Los Angeles County Office of Immigrant Affairs and have co-hosted educational workshops for workers and businesses to strengthen awareness of workplace rights and legal protections. Providing accurate information empowers residents and reduces fear and misinformation. Since the beginning of 2025, the city has actively exercised its legal authority to defend constitutional rights. The city has submitted an amicus briefs challenging attacks on birthright citizenships, opposed efforts to terminate temporary protected status and humanitarian parole, and supported efforts to protect access to essential programs such as Medicaid and SNAP. The city has also challenged discriminatory enforcement practices rooted in racial profiling and defended state and local authorities against federal overreach. Notably, the city intervened as a party in Vasquez Perdomo versus Noem, challenging profiling-based immigration enforcement practices. The city continues to explore all available legal avenues to safeguard the community. The city works closely with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department to maintain public safety. Sheriff's deputies do not enforce civil immigration laws. They do not inquire about immigration status when responding to calls for service or taking reports, and they are not involved in or notified of federal immigration enforcement operations. This separation reinforces community trust and ensures that all residents feel safe seeking help when needed. The City Council adopted a resolution reaffirming the city's commitment to upholding the Constitution and urging congressional oversight of unconstitutional federal actions. Through the Resist initiative, the city established a proactive framework to respond to policies that threaten vulnerable communities. This includes monitoring harmful federal proposals, authorizing advocacy efforts, and exploring additional programs if federal protections are weakened. The city has taken formal positions supporting legislation that requires immigration enforcement officers to display visible identification and prohibits non-medical facial coverings during enforcement actions. The city also sent formal correspondence to federal representatives outlining concerns regarding immigration enforcement activities and calling for the removal of military and federal personnel from local streets. Through direct services, education, legal advocacy, community safety partnerships, and proactive policy engagement, the city continues to take meaningful and sustained action in support of immigrant community members. The city's commitment remains clear: to foster a safe, inclusive, and equitable community for all residents. This concludes the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just have a question. You may not have specific numbers on this, and I know there are a lot of different services being offered, but are they being taken advantage of? Have you seen an uptick recently for these services? How widely are they being used?
We could reach out to our human services providers, since they oversee a lot of these resources that are provided to the community, and see if there's any recent statistics that they can share with us that we can bring back to the commission.
I would also say this is probably irrelevant, but it's interesting to have a mask on the poster for Resist when the masks are part of the controversy that I think we're trying to avoid. But anyway, I digress. Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Post.
Yes, thank you for the presentation, and thank you, Chair. Is there any current law on the city's books, maybe sanctuary city law, that bans contracts with groups that work with ICE currently. I know there was a similar provision in Oakland in the past where they denied a certain contract because they found out about those workings with ICE, and just wanted to see if there was any of that built into any of our sanctuary city laws.
There actually is not, no. There's nothing in the West Hollywood Municipal Code at this time.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any additional questions? Any public comments this time?
We have no public comments on
Sorry,
this item.
Commissioner Pilarski. Apologies, I didn't see you up here.
Press the button. Thank you. I have one question, and this is, I'm going to flip to it just so I say it right here. Part of our promoting and maintaining communications with the public relative to public safety as part of our purview. I was wondering if our city has any public communication around a script for how to handle an encounter with a ICE officer. I've seen some other cities have like a communication around, this is what you say, these are your First Amendment, Fourth Amendment rights and things like that. Does that exist? Have we done that?
Our communications department does have a crisis communication plan that involves a lot of different types of incidents that can happen in the city. So they do work through all of the different incidents that have recently happened, as well as emergencies that can happen. And they do have a crisis communication plan in place, but of course they take every incident as it comes to make it, they don't like to just put out generic, statements, but it's very thoughtful and
like I don't consent to a search. Yeah. They would maybe put that out.
I'm sorry?
Like something specific, like I don't consent to a search. Would that be something that we could say, like that's one of your rights as a citizen?
We can share the feedback to our communications team. I know they have shared a lot of information. If you are able to look at the staff report that's attached to this, we shared a lot of links with the public. If they can look at the Know Your Rights website, there's a lot of information there in terms of individual rights and what you can and cannot do if you encounter a situation in order to be, to act legally and protect yourself. So a lot of that information can definitely be found on the resources provided on our website.
Vice Chair Blau.
Thank you. Just a note that you can probably flow back to the Human Services Department is that the QR code, the link to the West Hollywood portion of it, doesn't work. It's broken. I just tried it.
Thank you for sharing that. We will absolutely send that feedback to the team. Thank you.
Thanks, and thank you for the presentation. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Do we have public comments at this point?
Not on this item.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Next up is items from staff. Are there any community safety updates?
Thank you, Chair. The Public Safety Awards luncheon and ceremony will be taking place on April 28th here at Council Chambers and the Auto Court. We will be recognizing personnel who have gone above and beyond in serving the community from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, Los Angeles County Fire Department, security ambassadors, and code enforcement here at the Council Chambers from 11:30 to 1:30, which will include a luncheon and an awards ceremony. Please save the date. The city is ready for the Los Angeles Marathon. We will continue working closely with our sheriffs and fire department to ensure the appropriate street closures and public safety measures are in place. The LA Marathon is just around the corner on Sunday, March 8th. As a reminder, we encourage all community members to sign up to receive emergency notifications by texting your zip code to 888-777. We also wanted to follow up about commissioners that had shared their experience about receiving nixle notifications out of the area. If you are experiencing this, it appears the issue with receiving nixle alerts outside of your area is typically due to locations not being narrowed down in the settings on your account. In case there are others in the community also experiencing this, we want to share the way to adjust this setting. The first step is to text the word password to 888-777. You will receive a temporary password along with a link to log into Nixle. From there, select Resident Sign Up and Login. Use your phone number and the temporary password to log in and adjust your location settings. Once logged in at Nixle.com, you can choose the specific locations and agencies you want to receive alerts from, as well as decide whether alerts are delivered via text message or email. We apologize for the extra steps, but this will stop any extra alerts and notifications you've been receiving and limit it to West Hollywood and areas of your choice. This concludes the updates from the Public Safety Division. Thank you.
Thank you. And that Nixle was helpful and it worked. So thank you. I know both did it. Next on the agenda is our second round of public comments. Commissioner Secretary, do we have any speakers at this time or Zoom callers?
Yes, we have one speaker, Michael Pacitti. If you want to approach the podium, you'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Hello again, Commissioners. Also, thanks for being here. I know you volunteer your time and all of our public safety officials. This is always very informative to me. It's nice to attend in person. I'm here tonight as a resident that cares. Again, I think I told you I can't shake the New York for me, so I walk everywhere in the city, and I think we are the most walkable city in California, I believe. But pedestrian safety is a concern, and so I'm happy to hear that this joint session can happen. I don't know if something's different about the crosswalks, but sometimes it's tough to make it crosswalks. I've escorted elderly folks, so if I can't make it across a crosswalk, I've stood in the middle of the intersection to make sure that people get through safety if they had a disability. So it's something to be looked into maybe in that commission. Sidewalks are regularly blocked, alleys and roadways are obstructed. I've documented lots of trash and things, and so if there's any focus we can give our statistics and this, joint commission, that would be good. I mean, this really isn't theoretical. This is daily life for those of us that walk here. I also live across from City Hall, so they're my wonderful neighbor, but there's a lot of concerns that I have. The automated parking garage, when it works, has Class 2 combustible chemicals there. And employees and visitors should feel safe when when using that space. Instead, we're seeing, again, blocked alleys, obstructed driveways, unsafe interactions in the spaces, especially at City Hall, that needs to be well managed for safety purposes. Just today, there was a motorcade there, an Escalade, a Mercedes, and a Suburban, and it was congested, and they had to turn around. Now, I can tell this must have not have been a federal protectee or state protectee, because they never would have put up with that. But they blocked the alley behind, blocked the garages. So I believe it was vendors of ours that are charged with public safety. So basic access and security around these civic areas are important. We live in a different world today. Having cars parked outside our buildings should not be the case, particularly in driveways. During voting season, they were blocked as well. So I hope we can look into this and making sure that these spaces remain clear. The data presented to the community today does not match what any of us are experiencing. So I really want us to look into, how we're measuring and what we're spending on enhanced safety here. We've approved cameras, drones, additional surveillance technology. If the decision has been made, then we should absolutely provide clarity on the performance and measures that are tied to these investments with our tax dollars. What are our measurements? How will success be defined? What outcomes justify these costs? And what is the timeline for some of these? Some of this stuff is dragging out. Our current public safety contracts should be delivering measurable improvements. We need to be looking at the services that we're provided as a contract city. At the same time, we need to reduce unnecessary bureaucracy and red tape and not stall these processes. When you sign on to Wi-Fi here in the city, you're giving up terms and conditions almost anywhere you go. So, data privacy and the data that we collect should be used for enhancement of public safety. Let's make sure we have SLAs and proper measures for these contracts that we're signing.
Thank you, Michael. That is all for the public comments.
Thank you. And moving on to commissioner comments. Do you have any commissioner comments? Commissioner Holman.
Thank you, Chair. I recently ran into two CARES teams members out on the street. Had a great conversation with them. They shared with me, what they were working on, some of the obstacles that they're confronted with. Director Rivas, is Human Services the umbrella agency or department that handles all of the services that we provide to individuals that are unhoused or on the streets?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
With the exception of the mental evaluation team that obviously is a deputy sheriff and a LA County licensed clinician, But like the care team, healthcare in action, and the rest of the social service, yes, that's housed in human services.
And I know everyone is working very hard to address this issue, but I'm noticing what appears to be an uptick on the east side of individuals on the street. So I wanted to make a motion to see if we can get human services in to speak with us and walk us through what they do, the different policies, procedures, and how these issues are currently being addressed.
So if it's the will of the commission, I think we had them a couple of months ago. I know they did come, but you can certainly make the request and we can ask and see what their availability may be.
Okay.
Yeah. Do we want to move forward with a motion?
I'll second the motion.
All in favor? I think we have.
The head's nodding. Yes, the consensus.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, because I just, want to make sure we are doing the best that we can as a city to help these individuals, as well as make life palatable for the residents that are walking on the streets. And then circling back, Director Rivas, to my earlier question about Allied, how can this be addressed?
So allow us, Anita and I, to consult with the city clerk's office, to see whether or not that's something that we could potentially place on a future agenda. I'm unaware of being able to, because the contract and the agreement's already in place, and the agreements ultimately go to council. Council approve the item, but let us have that discussion with the city clerk's office, and then we'll definitely circle back with the commission to see what's feasible.
Okay, and my question was basically, is there an affiliation? It's a yes or no question.
Yeah, I don't have that information, so I know you asked Allied, and so at this point, that again, that's something that we can consult with the city clerk's office on. And
well, I think Allied answered too that there is, and that they are merged. So I think that question was answered.
Then I think
you have more questions though about.
Well, I think then there's a deeper conversation that needs to be had, and then is that something that needs to go through city clerk? Then so be it. But I think it needs to be addressed.
Yeah, that's like I said, that's something that we'll definitely ask the city clerk's office about.
Okay.
And circle back.
Thank you.
Sure.
Oh, it's me. I just had a question about, I'm coming back to this livability thing, and I just heard comments about the data not reflecting our, let's call them our livability experiences every day. I probably was only, threatened or yelled at by a scooter rider on the sidewalk 3 times last week. I also walk everywhere. That's my livability index, unfortunately. So I was curious to hear that scooters were not part of the study of certain, it doesn't make sense to me, especially if we're considering them mobility and uses of mobility in the city, why they wouldn't be a part of every single study. I'm also really curious if there's only one incident of scooter. It's sort of impossible for me to look at that. I saw one scooter incident. So I'm just voicing that as a comment, a concern. I know I've discussed it with so many people in the city. It continues to be an issue. And I also believe that if our safety ambassadors are being required to move these scooters, that someone should be paying for it other than us.
Yes.
And so I would love, I don't know how we move that forward. I know that those contracts are in place, but I just find it impossible to believe that we do that on behalf of a private company that are causing us inconvenience and livability issues. So thank you for listening to me. Commissioner Winnick.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody for allowing me to join you as a commissioner on this commission. I walk or ride a bicycle all over the place, and am sensitive to the fact that there's a tremendous overlap between transportation and mobility, and I had the honor to serve on that commission, and public safety. And the scooters were a major issue for the Transportation and Mobility Commission, so it may be that there should be some overlap there. There have also been issues in the city generally about the cost of removing scooters. I know that the Disability Commission has got several people who are concerned about being able to get down sidewalks because the scooters are in the middle of it. And the same thing, and nobody mentioned it tonight, but I've heard safety concerns about the food delivery robots. I mean, they're kind of cute, but so they do some weird stuff. And so I don't know if that's something that we should also be considering along the way. And another thing that's come up, and I live in West Hollywood West. I've lived in West Hollywood West since 1989. I've lived in West Hollywood since 85. And there is a segment, that's about 1,000 households, and there's a segment of that, the group that is east of San Vicente, and that's a fair number of households, seem to be having a lot of vagrant incidents, near break-in incidents. There's a lot of discussion in that part of the neighborhood about wanting to hire private security. Honestly, I'm not on that side of the neighborhood, and my side of the neighborhood feels a great deal safer to me. But I'm very concerned that we seem to have a large group of people on the west side that feels unsafe in their homes and in their neighborhoods and on their streets. And when you look at the statistics about crime, the west side bears the brunt of crime. And so I don't know specifically yet, because it's all very new to me, how and what we might be doing about this, but I just want to air the idea that there's a segment of the community on the west side that is feeling unsafe in their homes.
Thank you, Commissioner Winnick.
Thank you.
We're happy you're here too. Commissioner Eng.
Thank you, Chair. And I was going to say welcome to Commissioner Winnick, and also comment that most of us are on the east side and city center, and so it is good to have a representative from the west side. One thing I will say about the crime rates there is that you include the Rainbow District, and that's going to be a lot of it.
I do understand that.
Yeah, and actually, Commissioner Post and I did do a West Side tour because of the concerns of those residents. Actually, when Commissioner Winnick mentioned the liaison situation, it made me think of the fact that George Nickel was a liaison for a few. Mm-hmm. I know older adult was one, because I was actually interested in that, but he took it. So what happens there? And I don't know if I know Women's Advisory was left over, unfortunately. So I think there's maybe 2 or 3 that, I don't know if we want to do a shuffle, or if just Commissioner Winnick wants to express whether or not she's interested in those. But I'll point out that those commissions now don't have a liaison. And that's it. Thank you.
Commissioner Pilarski.
Thank you, Chair. I also wanted to welcome Commissioner Winnick. Excited to have you, and some representation from the West Side. I attended both the Transportation Commission meeting as the Public Safety Commission's liaison, and I also attended Women Advisory because I knew that we had an opening there. So I wanted to make sure that we had some representation, because they have a lot of overlap when it comes to some of the items that they talk about. Commissioner Krieger, gave a fantastic overview of the public safety items that were covered at the Transportation Commission meeting. The Vision Zero dashboard is fantastic. I'm excited for that to continue to develop, and for the city to launch it, and for everyone to see the data. And the data is the most important thing, because that is helpful for how we allocate our resources. I wanted to just echo our public speakers tonight. Thank you for coming and acknowledging that we do need some attention on metrics. It is something that I think you can ask for, so I do just want to recommend that after this meeting, you speak directly with Director Rivas about, where to find this information, and if he can help you, he absolutely will help you. I wanted to acknowledge Ed Holman's public comment about the security potential breach that we have with our access keys. And also maybe we can talk to our Director Rivas here about who we can work with within the city about maybe a public safety announcement or talking to Athens directly. So. Two things that I have wanted to specifically follow up with staff on is during these meetings, we've been talking about things that we're going to follow up on, or future meetings where other commissions could present, or different documents that the city has that we'd like to take some time with at the city. And when I was attending other commissions, I saw that those commissions had a bit of a look ahead, where there'd be like, okay, Q1, you're going to look at these couple things. Q2, you're going to look at these. Q3, you have your chair, vice chair elections. And that's really helpful for us as commissioners, and then also the public, because it shows transparency around that we're following up with the things that are being brought to attention here. And it also helps everybody kind of like understand what issues are for which season. So I was looking specifically at the emergency response update because that document has come to public comment in City Council, but also when we looked at the fire after action report, one would assume that those findings would also be incorporated into the emergency response update. So I wanted to ask staff, is there a way that we can get a look ahead, or at least like 2 meetings? I know we don't have to be so super specific. I don't want to lock us into anything, but if we've talked about a whole list of items we're going to follow up with, maybe we could say like March, April, we'll look at this. April, May, we'll look at that. Is there a way we could do that?
Yeah, I was looking at Anita, but I'll hop in. So yeah, I mean, what we have done in the past for the Public Safety Commission is bring forth like a work plan for the year. And so we can definitely put something together, maybe even mirrors what was done before in the past. And of course, that doesn't mean that you have to stick to it, but maybe we can place that on the agenda for next month's meeting. As well as the liaison, kind of go over that as well, given Commissioner Nickel, and just make sure that all the commissions and boards, right, that he was planning to attend to or serve as a liaison to, if that's something that Commissioner Winnick is open to. But yeah, we can definitely put something together and bring that back for the commission to discuss at next commission meeting.
So are you saying that you would put it on the agenda to discuss, or you would come back with like a couple agenda items for April, May, and June?
I'm saying that we'll put it on the agenda for next commission meeting and allow you all to look at what's there, and then have a discussion. I think it'd be better to place it on the agenda so it allows that ability to discuss it a little bit more, rather than us coming back with like something that's set, because we certainly want to make sure that we're hitting the mark, and that at least being able to kind of respond to any questions that the commission may have.
Okay, thank you so much for acknowledging that. Okay, that was my comment. Thanks.
Commissioner Post?
Yeah, I kind of want to follow up on Commissioner Hallman's conversation. I really appreciate the presentation on the ICE resources. We appreciate all the work the city has done, whether it's joining these legal actions or providing the funding for some of these services. But I truly believe we need to be pushing back on ICE in any way that we possibly can. And I feel like contracting and knowing that our contracts, especially with our public safety technology, is not with an organization that has ties to ICE and is sharing information with them, is one of the few things in our power to actually change. And it seems like the council is already moving forward with evaluating and reviewing flock specifically for this issue. And I personally would like to make a motion for the council or for our commission to recommend to council to review all public safety contracts for their connections to ICE and go to council and have all of those folks reviewed. I don't think we should just be scrutinizing flock, especially with the mention of G4S. They're definitely involved in ICE and DHS contracts and in larger prison industrial complex contracts as well. And so I think we should be evaluating all of our contractors. And so I'd like to put that motion forward.
Do we have consensus?
Yes.
Commissioners? Do you want to make a formal motion? Or? I think we have consensus on that. I think it was asked earlier. I think we agreed earlier that you would look into it with the city.
Sure. Yeah, okay. Absolutely. Yeah, we'll look into that. And it sounds like the consensus is there, and so we'll bring that to the city clerk's attention as well.
Just to follow up just really quickly on that. Sorry, Commissioner Post. Just answer the question. Do you know if we're looking at contracts at that level currently
currently
for any providers that are facilitating or aiding ICE?
So that's not something that's currently being reviewed or a standard practice. Okay. There's no policy or municipal code in place, but we are looking at the public safety camera agreements, and so that was the directive, and so we are going to be bringing that item back on March 16th.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Sorry, sure. Commissioner Post.
Yeah, just two more items. I would love to also set the time for maybe May or June, like folks said, to do the test strip dispersal and just education overall with, I know the Women's Advisory Board, I know Human Services have both mentioned those things. So I would love to see that event planned, and hopefully we can get something planned for May. And then the only other thing I really wanted to share was I had the pleasure to go up with the city for Sacramento Lobby Day 2 or 3 weeks ago at this point, and it was a really great experience. Like, it was the moment of what I feel like we already talked about tonight, of getting to sit down with a commissioner from every other amazing board and commission that the city has, and to see all of their different perspectives when even asking questions with some of our assembly members. We got to meet with Assembly Member Zabur, Assembly Member Mark Gonzalez, a number of other state senators and assembly members. And just a quick overview of some of the things we touched on that were pertinent to public safety. Overall, it felt like the theme in Sacramento was that there is a budget shortfall from these federal cuts, and every department is scrambling to figure out how to fill that. But one of the other main topics which came up here tonight was definitely ICE. I know Assembly Mark Gonzalez made an introduction of the GTFO bill, which is, again, similar to some of these things. If someone's worked with ICE or worked for ICE, they shouldn't be working for the state of California. I think that kind of goes along with some of the contracting things that we just spoke about. Assembly members of Burr just released a bill called Alternatives to Arrest, or ATA. And this is supposed to be a bill that will reduce referral requirements to some of the social services providers. So I don't know if that currently affects how we do some of our coordinated response framework, but it seemed like this bill would expand eligible offenses that would be almost available to receive those social services. So that was another bill that was definitely highlighted. And then I also made an ask or two about LGBTQ, trans, and other hate crime reporting and prevention strategies. And Assemblymember Zabur said those are at top of mind for him as well, and he should have another bill coming out for those. So that's just a little bit of a taste of the, I think, 11 or 12 bills we're advocating for, of the even larger list that the city supports. So just, again, wanted to give that recap. Happy to provide any more information if folks want, and appreciate you all sending me up there.
Thank you. Vice Chair Blau.
Thank you, Chair. I just had 2 points, and the city clerk has left now, so maybe when you're talking with her about kind of what we talked about today, one of the things that was coming up was, maybe depending on how that conversation goes about what our purview needs to be on trends and policy focus, and this ties into what Commissioner Pilarski was talking about with the look ahead and work plan, is if we need to agendize more specific reviews of our policies themselves to get feedback on them at the most basic level, that would say, divide all of our, relevant policing codes by 12 and look at one section every month. I don't think that practically that makes sense, but something to that realm, I don't know, sounds like, at least what I was getting from the city clerk, to be closer to the city code's reading of what our purview should be to review and advise on policy of public safety. And it seems like maybe we're missing that aspect. I think practically one of the other things that I'm sort of thinking about as a con or something that's a benefit with the way that we are working now is that we get a lot of transparency as a community when we're able to talk about specific instances and look at some of that data. And I would just hope that when that conversation continues with the city clerk about what is the commission's purview and how much detailed data can we go into on a basis, that's also weighted, because that is of a high benefit to the community itself. Having, if nothing else, that forum where people feel like they're seeing what's going on and questions about incidences that are having social reach are being addressed and talked about, and we get that sort of follow-up, if nothing else. That's a huge benefit. Okay, the second thing, and it's related.
Commissioner Blau, real quick, just want to ask, so I know the city clerk mentioned that she was going to look into adding, when that time comes, with the city council about the neighborhood livability.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm missing, I just want to make sure I'm clear so that we can follow up and ask the city clerk about the statistical data that you mentioned right now.
Yeah, so her presentation specifically outlined that outside of the Public Safety Commission's purview is looking at, scrutinizing, and questioning specific instances of public safety events happening. And specifically, as an example, she called out one of the items on the sheriff report. And then I followed up with her and said, hey, okay, if we follow this train of thought, then from the fire department report, we would strip out the table about what are the individual incidences of fires that are happening, because and what was detailed in her presentation was we're only going to look at trends and we're only going to drive policy, and that this isn't a civilian oversight commission, which I agree. And then if we follow that onto the sheriff's report, at the very bottom, at the very least, that would say we're removing, and we wouldn't look at on a monthly basis, where DUI arrests are happening, or traffic collisions, or vehicle versus pedestrian incidences. And I listed those out, and she agreed. And so I'm just following that thread, because I think there is a huge benefit that the community gets in having that information provided here. And as that communication happens behind the scenes with the community safety department and the city clerk about that aspect, I would like that to be weighed in there as well.
I see. So the concern is about that data that's being provided now potentially being removed in the future?
Correct.
I would say that I would recommend to maintain where we're at now, given the fact that historically, like where we're at today in the monthly reports that the commission have been a long time coming. Like there's been constant input and feedback, right, from commissioners that have served on the Public Safety Commission, right, even prior to the current commission, like talking years, right, probably even a decade or so. And so I know the level of reporting that we currently provide on a monthly basis here to the commission, as well as the semi-annual report, is above and beyond what other contract cities throughout Los Angeles County and the Sheriff's Department provide. And so I would do my very best in terms of communicating that at least we should maintain what we have here. I wouldn't look at, paring it down in any way, because I think that would be important. But we'll definitely have that conversation. So I understand what you're
and maybe that reflects, maybe that drives the necessity to change the municipal code, right, to reflect that, because her presentation was very likely driven off of a stern, direct reading of the municipal code, which more or less explicitly removes that from the purview.
I see. Got it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the second point, with respect to like intersections and public safety technology, and I have no idea in this realm, so it's a question that I would have, is around red light cameras. I don't know, I know that we used to have some in the city, you know, we removed them in 2020. I would be curious if we could get information on that technology and maybe why we don't have that anymore. And for me, not being educated or knowledgeable in transportation, you know, are they even helpful or not? I think towards the policy aspect of things, knowing what that tool set might look like and how that could, you know, potentially also play into Vision Zero if implemented correctly. I don't know. I think Commissioner Polarski might know maybe more than I do. She's very knowledgeable. But anyways, I think that would be something that I would really like to see. It doesn't need to be anything intense, but if nothing else, like a history on red light cameras in the city of West Hollywood and why we are where we are, because maybe that informs what our opportunities are going forward. So I would like to make that motion for just a brief item on red light cameras in the city of West Hollywood.
So I will just provide just a quick update is regarding that, or I should say background on that. So when the city did have that, that was managed by our engineering division, which is housed in our Public Works Department. So that division also houses our traffic engineering function. And so they did manage the contract. We did have red light cameras for several years, and then a decision, to your point, Commissioner Blau, they were removed. The agreement was canceled and terminated by the City Council in 2020. So we can ask the Public Works Department and the Transportation and Mobility Division to see if that is something, because I want to say that I did hear recently that they may be looking into that again, but that does take staffing and resources. It's a much larger conversation, because even though engineering was managing that contract, you actually had a sheriff's deputy that was assigned to the station that was reviewing any sort of, you know, potential citations, right, that were going out. And so that position was dedicated to that. So obviously we have limitations. We're not able to add any sort of deputy sheriffs to our contract at this time, as we've communicated a couple times, but we can ask the question, kind of see where they're at, if at all, you know, exploring anything as it relates to the red light camera.
Yeah, that would be helpful. And if we can get it under our purview, like just the topic under our purview, I didn't realize that it sort of realms into that transportation and mobility, and maybe even if the city gets in on the speed cameras, that law, then I don't know if that's under our purview, where that ends up. This is like it's weird transportation mobility. So like, yeah, that would be really helpful, because I think maybe it's transportation mobility scope, but you know, knowing what's ability, and if it's not our scope, then you could just say like, get out.
No, we can follow up. I know the speed cameras is not something, I know the city tried to make contact, right, with the legislators to try to see if there was an ability to kind of add on to the pilot program. That wasn't something, at least my understanding is that that the state legislation was willing to kind of amend or incorporate at this time, but we can ask Public Works and the Transportation and Mobility Division to see if that's something, you know, as a part of Vision Zero, the red light camera specific, and see if they're exploring anything like that.
Great, thank you so
Sure.
much.
Commissioner Polarski.
Great. I just wanted to comment. Yeah, I think in Director Rivas, you acknowledged it at the end there. I think the city is doing a bigger analysis around Vision Zero and all of the tools, and I think we're looking at, you know, how we've been doing against our plan, because the Vision Zero plan is a adopted plan by the city. So Director Rivas, maybe, yeah, it would be helpful to have them, when they're ready, address all the tools they're looking at.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I think one thing we didn't mention in our update is, I know we got reached out to by the Transportation and Mobility Division in Public Works to see about coming to the Public Safety Commission to provide an update regarding Vision Zero and the dashboard, and I know that was mentioned a couple times. So we are looking at bringing that item with staff next month in March, so that might be a perfect opportunity as well to kind of ask that. So we'll make sure we can solidify that, with that division, but I wanted to mention that too.
Great. Commissioners, any other questions or comments at this point? None. We will adjourn and see everyone next month.
Lovely.